Hi, everybody. I'm Vince.
And I'm Emily.
And you're listening to the Lighthouse Lowdown. It's a great foghorn. Love it.
Can you believe I made that intro music before I even started the podcast?
Before we were even Lighthouse Lowdowners.
Yeah, I like to make things like if I have an idea, I go all in before it even proves to be like something that I'll continue, you know.
Yeah.
So I have a lot of hobbies that I've started, spent a bunch of money on, and then abandoned promptly afterwards. There's only a couple hobbies that have made it.
Well, here we are. We've dumped a little bit of money into this, and we're at the Lighthouse Lowdown.
Should I do this again?
We're getting it started. This is our representative history buoy for today.
You're jumping in.
We're jumping.
Coast Guard.
History buoy. This is one of the, I was going to say 5, I'm not sure. One of the several buoys that is eventually going to be involved with the lighthouse we're talking about today.
Oh!
But
these don't look like buoys for people that aren't watching.
Big buoy.
Vince has pulled up a picture of a strange Coast Guard buoy.
It's a big modern buoy. I assume those are handrails on it.
Yeah, it looks like one of those the merry-go-rounds that had a bunch of bars on it to hang onto.
Yep.
You ever fallen off one of those?
No, I've ever fallen off?
Yeah.
No. I've never fallen off.
Sorry. I just see videos of people, who go really fast and then fly off. No, and I feel like that's something that like guys would have done when they were like hanging out with their bros.
We did. We never got that.
Okay.
Never got that. We didn't have the internet when I was a kid, so.
Oh.
Not really.
You had to get the idea.
So we just had to oh my gosh, it was so fun, so crazy. There was no comparing. So this is a buoy, but the history buoy today is the word fetch. As in, that's so fetch.
No. Really? Are we actually?
Yeah. I'm defining fetch. Do you know what fetch means? I mean, there's several definitions.
I mean, yes.
I mean, one of them's nautical. We'll get to it. So
okay.
Fetch is a verb. Number 1, go for and then bring back for someone, to fetch something like a dog would fetch.
Right.
But the nautical is a noun, and it is the distance traveled by wind or waves across open water.
Okay.
And so I was like, so the distance of the water, like a linear distance?
Mm-hmm.
So I looked further into it because I wanted to know. So it's that, as well as the distance the wind blows unobstructed over water, especially in the case where it's a factor affecting the buildup of waves.
Okay.
So wind among tides and other factors builds up waves, and eventually there's a point where at the wind's critical speed matching the wave speed, if the wind is no longer adding to the wave height, then it will white top and wash out.
Okay.
So that's why sometimes you have different components of crazy storms building up.
Yeah.
So I thought that was kind of fun. It's a fetch. Cool. It's a distance where I'm gonna say it's a distance where the wind contributes to the wave building.
Okay.
Because that's.
So what does that have to do with our buoy?
Well, I just chose the buoy because it's a history buoy.
I see. Oh,
sorry.
I see.
We never show
visual.
A buoy.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That's another thing we should do. Vince and I are working on a new logo for our podcast, and maybe I should make a history buoy page for what we're doing. A history buoy that's like a little buoy.
That'd be great. Some people will see that this episode we are announcing a giveaway.
Yes, giveaway.
We're giving away a 20-ounce Stanley tumbler with a custom engraved logo that no one has ever seen before.
Oh yeah,
the logo is ours.
New logo.
Lighthouse Lowdown logo.
Yeah, 20 ounce. It's light blue, and it's gonna have the Lighthouse Lowdown and our new logo on it. It's exciting. It's like our first piece of merchandise.
That's right. First merch, Lighthouse Lowdown. First, what do they call that? Original print?
I don't know.
Anyways, first release. If you're looking at the YouTube video right now, you should see the image on screen. Meow. Okay, that's what it looks like. But yeah, enter. You have until December 25th, Christmas Day. At that time, we'll be looking at whoever subscribes to our email notifications. So to do that, you go to our website, which is thelighthouse.lowdown.com. On the right-hand side, it asks you only 2 questions. One is, what's your first name? You can really put whatever you want there. Yeah. And the second is, what is your email? You click go, and then in your email, you'll have to see that email come in and click confirm. That's it. That's all you got to do.
So doing that just means that when we post a new episode on the podcast, you'll get an email telling you, just a notification in your email that we posted a new episode. So I think that's the only time you should get emails from us. And when you subscribe for the first time for this giveaway, you'll get an email. Make sure you check your spam folder and confirm your email with the message that comes in, because then we'll be able to reach out to you if you do win the Stanley Cup and get your address so we can ship it out to you. And this is only within the U.S., so sorry to our international listeners, but we got to keep it U.S. only.
Anyone subscribed to the email is eligible.
Yes.
So we'll be pulling a name from that list on the 25th, and we'll let you know shortly afterwards. If you don't respond soon, we'll have to move on.
Right.
But we appreciate everybody.
So be vigilant.
So
exciting.
Giveaway. So we are jumping right into our lighthouse. Do you know
this looks
this lighthouse? Do you recognize?
No, I don't. Wait.
Pacific Northwest.
Is this Disappointment?
Father of the Northwest lighthouses. This is Cape Disappointment Lighthouse.
Yes.
So I wanted to talk about a shipwreck, and that was going to be our episode today.
Okay.
There's a ship called the Oriole. We're going to talk all about it.
I've heard of it.
The Oriole has an interesting history we're gonna cover, but it wrecked near Cape Disappointment. And I was like, I'll just have a short episode this week. It's going to be great. It's just about the Oriole. It was involved in A, B, and C. And then I got sucked in.
Yeah.
As ships do.
Oh. An excellent segue.
Near Cape Disappointment. So
it's an incredible photo. I should go to our YouTube and see the photos that Vince is putting up.
You really should. This is a cool one because I like the water washing down. I'm going to show you several photos of this. I believe that's called Dead Man's Cove.
Oh, yeah.
There's trails nearby. There's lots of visitors centers and activities in this area. Astoria is nearby for those of you who are interested. But I'm going to pull up a map because I like to do that.
Yeah.
Cape Disappointment Lighthouse is here. Nice. You'll also have another lighthouse up here called North Head, which we'll talk about. It's famous as well. Cape Disappointment State Park. You zoom out. This is the entrance to the Columbia River, or I should say the mouth of the Columbia River, which outflows into the Pacific Ocean. Astoria is a town I mentioned, cool town. I have been there. You zoom out, there's Seattle, Portland. So here we are.
Well, it's right on the edge of Oregon, the top of Oregon.
It is the border, this waterway right
it's
here.
Washington.
So technically it is in Washington.
Oh.
Yeah. We'll talk a lot about this, but I'm going to close the map for the moment.
Okay. Yeah, I get distracted.
This is another map.
Anytime you have a map up, I'm like, oh, look, a pub. I always get distracted.
Like, what's in Astoria?
Yeah. Can you zoom in on that?
When we visit, where are we going to go?
Totally unrelated to the lighthouse.
You mentioned blackberry pie. All right. So the Columbia River, I mentioned. I need to stress this because when you get to the mouth of the river, you have a very extreme weather area. And the sandbar, which is at the mouth of the river, we're going to talk about that, comes from this effect. So the Columbia River is 1,200 miles, and it goes way up into Canada there, into the northern Rockies.
Yeah.
And then all of these tributaries, I think is the word, contribute to the outflow at the Columbia River.
Oh, it goes out. Okay.
So it's flowing west.
Nice.
Into the ocean. I forget what that's called. Delta.
Delta's the outlet.
So
sediment.
So it's you'll see. But the Columbia River is a huge collection. Mount Rainier's in this area. The Rockies are here. All of the Pacific Northwest basically comes out of the Columbia River.
I vaguely feel like we've talked about Columbia River, this outlet being very dangerous. Did we cover the lighthouse on the other side of this mouth? We've
talked about, so to get back to the Oriole, and I might say this twice.
Okay.
The Oriole was a ship, and it was commissioned by a company I'll quote later. But the ship was responsible for building 8 lighthouses on the West Coast.
Oh.
And carrying the materials other than the brick and exterior rock, stone, for those lighthouses. And it crashed at the Columbia River Bar, which is, and it had supplies to build Cape Disappointment Lighthouse.
Oh,
the Oriole, just previously to that crash, had delivered to the Alcatraz Island Lighthouse.
Okay.
So it had come all the way around Cape Horn from the east coast of the United States with materials to build lighthouses. And it did crash. So I think that was our connection. Because when I covered Alcatraz Island Light, I heard about the Oriole in that I actually have it quoted in my own notes. We talked about the Oriole, and then contributing to this story as well.
I know I talked about the Columbia River, and I think this doesn't have to be included, but can you just go back to the map and zoom in and see?
Oh, the Google map?
Yeah.
Yes, I can. Here's our map.
All right, zoom out and go to the other side.
Down south?
Yeah.
Good, baby. There's one in here. Lightship Columbia. Did we talk about that? Oh, there's your buoy.
Is Terrible Tilly around here or something?
Tillamook Rock is north.
Ah, that's what it was.
Isn't it? No, it's south. Excuse me.
Okay, so
we haven't.
This was the other.
We haven't aired Tillamook Rock, right?
No.
Oh, it's a good episode.
I know.
I'm excited. Tillamook Rock.
You and Alan and Nathan have to do it.
Look at that picture that comes up. Tillamook Rock, Terrible Tilly is going to be an awesome episode. This whole area is really cool.
You guys have heard all about it, us trying to cover Tillamook and failing because of technical difficulties. But we had a winner for a raffle of being a guest on the podcast at a party. And we're thinking that those winners are going to cover Tillamook Rock.
With us, of course.
Yes. It'll be a boys episode.
Oh, my gosh. Emily will be pouring drinks. All right.
Yes.
So here we got Cape Disappointment. I just wanted to show this, and you can read if you'd like.
Yeah,
Pause
powerful
and read.
water.
Yellowstone's, and the whole area is Pacific Northwest. So powerful water. This is a zoom in again. So we're looking here is the lighthouse. The sandbar is formed here, and it's formed by twice a day the tides, because of the moon, which we should probably cover as a history buoy.
Oh.
Flow outward with an extra surge of flow. And so the tide changing creates a sandbar underwater here.
That's about like 3 miles away from the coastline.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting. Or maybe 5 miles.
So about 5 miles out, I'm gonna actually be quoting myself later. 5 miles out is when ships start to navigate around the sandbar.
Okay.
Using Cape Disappointment.
Oh.
And other navigational beacons of history.
So the Cape Disappointment's used more as like a long distance light than a it's not as much navigating you into the.
It is. So Astoria is here where the label Columbia River is at, for those of you who aren't sitting with us. And so Astoria is a major trading port, and it has been for a long time, as well as today. There's lots of business developed here. So the ships will go to the south and line up, and then come north to avoid the bar.
Line up with Cape Disappointment?
Yes.
Okay.
And the challenge is, we'll talk about, I think it's the Oriole that I quoted. They're talking about how they've waited 8 days outside of the bar for good weather. And the weather, so there's lots of fog in the area. There's lots of wind changes, as well as storms, as well as you can count on the tides. And like ships will start to come in when the tide is favorable and the winds will change. And if it's a sailing ship of old, then all of a sudden you had power and now you don't have power.
Yeah.
So you start sliding into the sandbar or sliding into the landmass. So it's a difficult area to navigate, and it just can't be avoided. Lots of people have taken efforts to life save around this area, which is still continued today. We're going to talk about that too.
Okay.
Kind of neat.
Life-saving stations?
Mm-hmm.
That's a history buoy that I want to do, so don't go too far in depth.
Okay. So
you can't take multiple subjects in one podcast episode.
I'm telling you, this is just a big chunk.
You're stealing everything.
I'm not stealing everything.
All right.
Disappointment. Cape
That's the
theme.
Disappointment.
So these are my photos from a trip I took in 2014.
Wow.
With my dad, my brother, and some family members. This is the trip. It's a personal story, but I took a shot of wine. Remember that?
Oh.
Yeah. So it's not that good of a story, but so I cannot tell you which bridge this is. And I looked for a long time. This is not Cape Disappointment we're looking at.
Okay.
But this is Pacific Northwest. We went to Astoria. We did the whole, oh my gosh, what's the giant national park? Mount Hood.
Mount Rainier?
Yeah, Mount Rainier. The whole Olympic Peninsula.
Isn't
Olympic
Rainier?
National Park.
Oh.
I think.
I thought there was a Rainier National Park.
I'm sorry, I have to go look at the map because I'm an idiot. Everyone there's thousands, tens, hundreds of thousands of people are going to be like, yeah, bro, Olympic National Park, Olympic National Forest. So I've been to Victoria. I've been to Port Angeles. That's where my family was from, my dad's family.
Oh.
His grandparents. Sequim, it's a cool town.
Yeah. man.
For you Lighthouse lovers that are also fans of Twilight, Forks is up here.
Oh my gosh, no way.
We went to Forks.
Those are my people.
To Lowdown. So
Wow.
fantastic blackberry pie in the summertime, by the way. So I say all this. My dad drove us, and I was a kid. I was, 18? So I didn't know where we were going.
Yeah.
But this bridge, I took pictures here, and then the next slide of the bridge below. That I wanted to express the fog that we saw, the massive. This is a very high bridge, and then this is like a whirlpool. So this was the tide kind of slowly changing, I think. And my dad knows more about this. I need to ask him where are we in this picture? But this is a passage of fog over him standing on the bridge. It was just really cool. It was a really neat experience.
It's weird, like weather phenomena going on.
Yeah, crazy weather. This is midsummer, like August probably.
Yeah.
So maybe late summer. But crazy weather, very powerful water, and the tides. I had never experienced that being a Kansas boy, seeing the impact of rivers outflowing into the ocean. So big impact. I just wanted to share these photos because I took them. I thought they were kind of neat. I also took this picture, which
ship remnants.
I keep throwing chips on the pile, but one more chip on the pile of this is near Cape Disappointment, like very nearby, and this is I want to say 1930s. The shipwrecked. They stripped it of metal and then they left the frame, so the frame is still there for people to go see as a public park thing. It's if you look up that beach, you'll see that thousands of pictures of that. There's Sunset, Fort Stevens State Park. Boom.
Oh, wow.
So again, things to see. Lighthouse tourism, I'm actually going to cover as its own thing coming up.
Yeah.
Kind of how to.
Lighthouse
but
Park.
Yeah, if you're going to go see a town like Astoria, which the Goonies is based in Astoria as well.
All right.
You're going to see stuff like that. So 42,000 photos from the state park. Very highly rated. So that's, for the moment, I'm going to take a pause, but I wanted to emphasize the weather has caused quite a bit of drama.
Okay.
And here we have a sketch. This sketch was created before the lighthouse was actually built. So let's talk about it. All right, we talked about the Columbia River, treacherous bar. There were 234 identified ships that stranded, sank, or burned within the mouth of the river between 1725 and 1961. Nowadays, we're much better at navigating as well as life-saving. So the kind of drop-off was in the 1960s. So this is a watercolor that was made from a sketch, and what's written there, I couldn't really read it myself, but it's translated. It's basically giving credit to who sketched it and then who did the watercolor.
Okay.
And so I want to talk about the discovery of the cove first. So we have Native Americans living in the area, then there are Spanish settlers, and then there are other European shipgoers. So 1792, a man named Robert Gray was the first European to successfully cross the bar. I believe he was also the first to circumnavigate the globe from Europe. And he named the river after his ship, which was the Columbia Rediviva. So Columbia River. The north side, you have the Cape that is Cape Disappointment, first named by a Spanish man, Captain John Mears. Okay. After trying to seek shelter from a turbulent sea, 1788, Mears wrote, quote, "Disappointment continued to accompany us. We can safely exert that no river San Rogue exists." He was looking for oh my gosh, my mind's blanking, the river that crossed the United States that doesn't exist. The Northwest Passage.
Never heard of that.
We talked about it in school many years ago. The Northwest Passage was a river that a lot of people were looking for.
They assumed it would cross the entire continent?
Yeah.
Oh, that's interesting.
A river that would allow ships to pass all of the inland without going around the Horn of Africa, which is treacherous, scary, long way. So this is the 1700s. He was looking for it, and disappointment came from his quote. So another prominent explorer, we talked about Robert Gray. He named it.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Just to clarify, they named it Cape Disappointment because they were looking for this river across the continent, and they didn't find it, so they named this Cape. That's hilarious. I was wondering why they decided to name it that. I was like, there's got to be some good story behind it.
Yeah, that was the original, seeking shelter, looking for the Northwest Passage. And Columbia River is so large that It was actually, so these explorers had difficulty even entering the river mouth and time just moved slow back then. If you enter, then you get upstream. The Chinook Indians were in the area, so there was Indian and fur trading going on. But how far does this river go? It wasn't really a conversation. The Indians probably had never traveled more than maybe 100 miles. I don't know. I'm guessing, but no one had gone all the way up to the Canadian Rockies on this river, so it wasn't mapped yet. Robert Gray, who's a prominent name to this day in that area, discovered a lot. He was another explorer. He named the Cape Hancock in 1792, but later he named it again to disappointment when he learned that it had already been named by Captain Mears.
Oh. He's like, agreed.
So this is in the 1700s, the early navigation in the area. A white flag was placed on top of the cape that originally marked the river entrance. And then 3 prominent spruce trees were planted, and those were used to line up. And so when you would see them line up, they were, range lights?
Oh, yeah,
is that right?
Range lights before there were lights.
So they would line up with these 3 trees 5 miles offshore, head for the southerly tip of the cape to navigate through the deepest part of the river, so to keep them away from the rocks and the bar. A lighthouse was officially recommended in 1848 as one of the first on the West Coast.
Okay.
So, yes.
Yeah, later than you would anticipate, but if it's the first over there, then...
Unsettled, crazy West.
Right.
1852, a contract was entered for its construction. Originally, it was $31,000, but the amount was augmented by $7,500 due to certain modifications.
Okay.
Which we'll talk about.
Oh. Modifications. Okay.
You have seen this design before.
Oh, a reused.
But not as it was built.
Oh,
You'll see why. So this image, I find it really interesting. Here's why. A man named Hartman Bach,
B-A-C-H-E.
B-A-C-H-E, was a lieutenant and member of the Army Topographical Engineers. He surveyed locations for the first 8 light stations that were to be constructed on the West Coast. It was a whole new deal.
So he's the one to decide where they were going to be built?
Yep.
Nice.
A
lot of pressure.
Later, he was promoted to major, also military this whole time. Was assigned to the Lighthouse Board as inspector of the 4th District, which is this area. 1855, he transferred to the 12th District, which is the whole West Coast, as inspector, and his office was in San Francisco. So he made quite a name for himself in the lighthouse world, especially on the West Coast. He thought it was important to chronicle the new stations, and that he traveled to the sites. He made his own measurements and drawings. So this is a realistic view, a sketch of the area before the lighthouse was there by him.
Oh, yeah.
Hartman Bach.
I see his name signature up there.
When he returned to San Francisco, a draftsman, who's the other man named Sandgren, rendered the drawings into watercolors. The above is Cape Disappointment.
Nice.
That man, Hartman Bach, is also the great-grandson of Benjamin Franklin.
What?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's wild.
And himself, he was a part of the Lighthouse Board, the board, from 1862 to 1870. So he was one of the OGs of the USLHS. In recommending a lighthouse and 5 buoys to the channel, William MacArthur of the U.S. Coast Guard wrote, quote, "The greatly increasing commerce of Oregon demands that these improvements be made immediately. Within the last 18 months, more vessels have crossed the Columbia River bar than had crossed it perhaps all the time past. And during that time, no vessel has received the slightest injury, and but few have met with much delay." So I think he's saying that they can pass, but it's becoming a problem with traffic and also delay. Like to be able to do good business, you need to have reliable timing. So
and people have to know what to expect too. Like to not have something consistent is problematic.
Right. You're like, you'll get through sometime.
Yeah.
So we've talked about them before, but there's contractors on the East Coast called Gibsons and Kelly of Baltimore, Maryland.
Okay.
They're the lighthouse people of the time, the architects, engineers.
Builders.
So they were already starting, their contract had begun, and 4 of the lighthouses out of the 8 had already started construction.
Oh, wow.
When
so they were busy.
They had dispatched the Oriole to Cape Disappointment.
Okay.
September 18th of 1853, After waiting offshore for 8 days and conditions to improve, the Oriole attempted to cross the bar and wrecked slightly below the Cape.
No.
32-man crew narrowly escaped with their lives, but both the vessel and all building supplies on board were lost.
Oh, gosh.
Now, originally I had more notes. They're like talking about, it went up on its ends, and everything was lost. And
there's pictures of it.
Yeah, I think they are paintings. But so
did that affect the building of Cape Disappointment at all? Like, did it get
2-year delay?
Oh,
2 years, because you have to build. This is very specialized equipment, like the lantern room was one of those items. The staircases. On the ship.
Oh, gosh, I thought you said I thought you meant the lens was on the ship. I was like, no. But they would have shipped that separately, I assume, from France. What?
They weren't Fresnel lens design at the time.
Oh, that's right.
So they were designing at this time to use. This is really cool. I've never seen this before. So on the bottom left screen, you're going to see what we've seen before. So this is an automatic oil lamp, meaning that there's a pump you set up. The pump pumps oil, then it burns, and you have a reflector here.
Mm-hmm.
The image above it, top left, is a chandelier of those assemblies. Right. So that was the original design for the lantern room at Cape Disappointment, as well as many other or lighthouses on the West Coast.
Right.
So during construction, it took so long, plus the 2-year delay, that they decided, you know what, this is outdated and this is an important endeavor. We're going to go ahead and use the first order Fresnel lens.
Before it even lit?
Before it even lit.
Ooh, but they said they set up the reflectors before that?
They didn't have them active, but they were in place.
Oh, boy.
Yeah, maybe. And so I'm going to read this paragraph.
Lots of expenses.
Again, it was delayed. That the construction was again delayed after these 2 years because it was discovered that the upper diameter of the tower was not large enough to accommodate the lantern room for the new 4-ton first-order Fresnel lens, manufactured in Paris by Louis Sauter and Company. The entire tower had to be dismantled brick by brick and rebuilt.
It was on accident that the diameter was too small, or
they didn't think about it. They made a mistake, an engineering mistake.
They were planning on having reflectors, so it didn't matter.
Which, I don't know the scale of this, but it's bound to be much smaller than a first order lens. But we talked about the scale of those.
Yeah, definitely. And you could adjust the size of a chandelier of reflectors better than a Fresnel lens. You can't. I mean, they rebuilt the lighthouse rather than get a smaller Fresnel lens, so. So, but what order is in there, or was in there first?
First order was installed. Later, a fourth order when the first order lens was sent to North Head Lighthouse, which is that one just up north.
Yeah.
North Head. I haven't figured out why. It's more prominent. It was slightly newer, and it became the new West Coast.
The more
ideal lighthouse.
Yeah.
But Cape Disappointment was the original. It's the matriarchy.
So this drawing you have on the screen, that's not what Cape Disappointment looks like.
It's not. But that was the design. So this company we just talked about, I got to go back. Frank's, what are they? Gibson's and Kelly of Baltimore. They were contracted to draw one design that was going to be used on the East Coast. And then again on all of the West Coast, 8 lighthouses at once.
They were planning on them all matching.
This is what was built at Alcatraz Island as the first lighthouse.
Oh, yeah.
Because it was built right before on the same contract, but they couldn't build it here and also one other location out of the 8. I can't remember which one because there wasn't enough land mass.
Okay, yeah, because it's pretty pointy, the land that it's on.
If we'll go look at that, the land it's on, even in the preliminary sketch, doesn't have room for any other outbuildings.
Right.
He's like, yep, tower.
Yeah, we got that's about it.
So this was varied upon for that reason. Okay. But this was the engineered drawing. And part of that makes me think, as an engineer, that's why, look at the window being adjacent to the roof. Like that's not going to be built that way. The chimneys are so close to the edge, that might not be accurate. Where is grade at? So
just a very preliminary sketch.
I get carried away, but they're like, lighthouse, important.
They also assumed that in this drawing that the lighthouse was going to be on slanted ground, and you'd have to accommodate the window to fit that.
Yeah, your window's going to be underground. But the first time we looked at this, I didn't think about it.
Yeah.
But mistakes were made. Mm-hmm. I'll give them some grace. They were a little bit more engineering than me.
Oh, yeah.
But where this is a story and a half dwelling, split in half, 2 different living
little
quarters.
Duplex going on.
Where this could not be erected, which is 2 places, they instead did a standalone tower and separate housing, kind of custom built, I will say, which probably didn't add to the cost effectiveness nor speed. So this is the OG. This is a 15-inch cannon, which we'll talk about.
The West Coast likes having really big lantern rooms compared to the size of their lighthouses or their towers.
Yeah, huge lantern room.
It's like
first
half
order lens.
the size.
And it's on a cliff, as we saw. I think they said the range was 22 miles. We're going to talk about dimensions here in a second.
Okay.
But there's 3 images. This is the first one that I see. Like, I smile because I'm like, this could be a rap album cover. Like
a guy with a cannon.
And the 2 guys like hanging out. Like, I'm going to go in the upper. And
I'll
go on the
top,
gallery.
You go on bottom. Yeah. And then the 3 guys sitting casually next to a big bell.
They spent like 20 minutes setting up for this photo.
That's hilarious. And they probably had to sit there for a long time too.
Yeah. Fun thing for me, I like guns. They're interesting. Cannons. These are elevation notches. So they would lock a pin in one of these elevations to aim the gun.
Yeah.
So if you're into cannons, you'll see that that's not super. Look at those cannonballs
in there.
So we'll stay here. It's fine. When Cape Disappointment was first lit, it was 1856 in October. Became the 8th active. Remember October? We'll go back to that. The 8th active light on the West Coast in total. 6 of the original 8 were built from the form of that tower we just saw.
Right.
And the 2
integral,
were integral, story and a half, same drawing, same lens. The 2 that didn't work for were Cape Disappointment, as shown, and then another one, Farallon Island.
Okay.
I think that's near San Francisco. Didn't look too deeply into it for the moment. They had a detached dwelling.
So like a modified version.
Quoted a considerable distance away, which will come into play.
But what is this?
This is a later design, which is why I shouldn't have jumped to it.
Yeah,
but this is a fog bell.
Right.
This, I think, 1,600 pounds. We'll talk all numbers. But
that looks about right.
An oil house. But these are not residences. So the brick tower dimensions, 53 feet tall. Focal plane is 220 feet above the sea.
Wow.
So pretty high.
Very high up there.
Tapers from a diameter of 14 feet 4 inches at its base to 10 foot 6 at the lantern room. It was also fitted. This fog bell was 1,600 pounds.
Oh my gosh.
It's a big bell.
That is a big bell.
But it was useless.
It's like humans. Why?
It was quoted many times as useless and disappointing. Because of the roar of the surf and the distance at which ships needed to hear that bell.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, because you said it was 5 miles out before people started to use it. So no way.
So in fog conditions, you'd be careful as you could.
Yeah.
As a ship captain. But, okay, the fog bell, you need to not only hear it, but also be able to perceive a direction.
Yeah.
There's a cliff below it. It's in the air, like 220 feet above you. So the first keeper was there before the light was even lit. His name was John Boyd.
I've heard that name before.
It mentioned that he was crippled, but it never said how. And so I read a bunch of correspondence between John Boyd and our gentleman, Bach, who was promoted, and he was John Boyd's supervisor in San Francisco.
Yeah.
They corresponded all the time, which is great for history. But
and if he was an inspector, then he probably came by.
He seemed to be good at his job.
Yeah.
Very militant.
Thorough.
Yeah. Like, for example, they talked about you shall whitewash the walls only so often as is required, and not too often to deteriorate the situation, the materials, as well as spend too much money. And he's like, I heard a report that upon inspection it was of outstanding appearance, and it was like, make sure you're budgeting well. He's like,
that better be at budget.
In the same letter, he said, you are not permitted in any capacity to change. I'm paraphrasing.
Yes.
Any colors of paint anywhere on this entire grounds. And he's
like, this white is too white.
John Boyd was like, well, we painted something that was red to white. That way it would cast the light better into the room we're working in. Is that acceptable? He's like, white is more light casting than red, and it was red. So anyways, lots of back and forth, but John Boyd was a good old boy, somehow crippled, and I just have to get that out of the way because it mentions it a bunch.
Yeah.
But he endured a lot of hardships at Cape Disappointment, fitting the name. And he died on duty eventually in 1865.
Yikes.
Also October.
What from?
Didn't say.
Dang.
I don't know if it was an accident or if he was old. It sounded because he was crippled. Maybe he died of his disablement, whatever that might have been.
Some kind of like old wound from something.
It could have been an
I don't know.
wound. I mean, for example, these cannons were for the Civil War, which just blows my mind.
Yeah.
They were so.
I'm sure someone out there knows. If you know.
Yeah.
What took
how John Boyd died.
Yeah.
If you can Google better than I can, please let me know. So he faced a lot of turmoil, both from the lighthouse, just everything that comes with managing that, the sea, the weather conditions, and then other keepers.
Oh.
The first fall season, remember, they just opened door in October. They just lit the light.
Yeah.
This letter was in November.
Oh, prompt.
The keepers found standing water. Not yet. They found standing watch in the tower unpleasant in the cool weather.
Oh.
Boyd sent the following request to Hartman Bach, the Lighthouse Board superintendent for the West Coast in San Francisco. Quote, as the winter advances, we find it very damp, cold, and uncomfortable watching the light without a fire in the tower. As the dwelling is situated so far from the tower, those having the watch of the light are obliged to sleep there.
Oh.
Yeah. We require a small stove very much and shall suffer very much without one through the long, cold nights.
Oh, my goodness.
One that we could heat oil and water with would be preferable. Bach and Boyd would continue correspondence. That's my note, because there's so many things that could have included between the two. And there's a couple more, but he went on to argue. Bach said, no, we can't do that. If we do give you a stove, it'll be for a nearby building, not the tower. Another tower I've heard of, again, of course, paraphrasing.
Yes.
There's no way to install the flue for your stove. It can't be inside at risk of oil fire. And if you flue it out through the external wall, you have to penetrate that wall. And also the smoke from the stove can impede the light. And we just can't have that, they gave a lot of thought to these things.
Oh, definitely.
But the answer was basically no. So cold gentleman. So now fast forward, it's the Civil War a couple years later. Fortifications were added. There's a fort nearby. I don't remember what it was called, but this is still a military site at the time.
Okay, so they were using it for like a defense purposes.
Yep.
Okay.
They had a 15-inch gun, which is shown there, discharged in 1865. I don't know if it was to fire on a ship or if it was a test fire or what, but the concussion broke 11 panes of glass in the tower's lantern room.
No.
Yep. Keeper Boyd suggested that the lighthouse should be relocated because they were not going to give up the cannon's position on this cliff.
That's stupid. And it is so close to that lighthouse.
Yeah.
I'm not.
There's several of them. See if I have another picture.
I'm surprised that the force of that thing going off would shatter glass, like still a considerable distance away.
Look at this gun. This is another rap album picture.
Yeah, ladies,
these fine ladies
in full dress posing next to a gun.
15-inch gun. So another gun. I think that's a separate one that's nearby, but for now we'll stay here. So the answer was no. No changes will be made. Quote, all windows in the lighthouse buildings are to be opened and all precautions taken if possible to prevent injury to the lens, lamp, and other pieces of apparatus connected to the lighthouse. Just survive the concussive force. So here's some cannonballs.
Nice. What is all this concrete foundation stuff going on?
So they talked a lot about concrete foundations in their letters. The cellars of all the buildings would fill with water.
Okay.
They talked about different pumps they'd use and how in 4 hours they'd be full again. So they cemented a lot of cellars and built up a lot of these areas as well. And I think they had money to do that with the guns that came from the military. It was kind of we need the lighthouse to be working, and also we got to have a good spot for our cannons. Look at the size of those things.
Must be so heavy. How do you even lift them in there?
I don't know. I have no idea. There was actually a video on how to fire one of these guns, but
so you went deep on tangents.
I've spent a lot of time learning about Cape Disappointment.
Watching videos on how to load these. That's hilarious.
Yeah, they had actually a video I watched on the guys. They still have one of these guns on like the East Coast, one of the same Civil War era 15-inch cannons. They had a cool name. I forgot what it was called. Some last name, but like Johnson gun or something. But
I wouldn't say that's a cool name.
It's some last name. Rodman. It was a Rodman gun.
That is better.
Yeah. as in Dennis Rodman. Anyways, getting all the rebounds. In the video, they're like, it's a Civil War reenactment where they load it and they turn their heads and they fire, and the guy pulls out the plunger and they're going to reload it again, except there's no fire. There's like a bell they chime. So it's like,
oh my gosh.
ding, ding, and then the guys, recover. Now they reload it.
That's so funny.
Made me smile.
Well, the force to knock out panes of glass that far up, weren't these guys like just knocked back to the ground? Like, I don't get it.
Well, if you think about technology at that time, cannon technology, they were literally loading powder charges and throwing a ball at the enemy, a ball of metal. Like, they didn't have rockets, cartridges for firearms were different, primitive. Like, so I think there's a lot of wasted energy in the firing of a cannonball at that time compared to what we have now, of course. But I think the concussive force would just destroy everything. I mean, people would lose hearing.
Yeah.
You could probably be killed by it if you're standing at or near the barrel.
So they would load it and then try and get out of the area?
Yeah. Still to today, like artillery crews, I don't know much, so someone please tell us more. But the videos I've seen, they load, and when they prepare to fire, everybody basically covers. So they duck down and cover their ears, and
Scary.
like one guy pulls a string. And today it's probably electronic, but a firing mechanism. And I think that procedure has kind of been the same for a while. So everyone around it's military trained, but the lighthouse keepers are not really.
No.
So they're just next to this thing.
Unless it's just by happenstance that they came from that background.
I'm not aware of any Civil War activity on the West Coast with ships in this Columbia River.
I can't imagine.
I don't know of it with my historical knowledge. I do know there's a Japanese sub that surfaced in World War II near this area, which the lighthouse is still there. It's still there today, so kind of neat.
So this picture you have up has a lot more buildings going on. Every time you pull up a picture, it's more buildings.
Yeah, this is like 1930, pretty sure. And so we have a lot more going on. The cannon is removed now because it was right here. The cannonballs were there. So we're no longer at active war, and the cannons are gone at this time.
Is there a stove in any of these buildings?
And there's also, see that cable? So that's electricity or telephone. They installed a radio tower there. We'll talk about as well. But is there any stove?
Yeah.
I don't. Oh yeah, look at the chimney right there.
Nice.
In this building, which is I think like a guard tower. It's not the residences because they still don't have room on this cliff for the house.
And it's not the Foghorn building?
I believe that is.
Because that might be like a steam.
Oh, you know what? You might have got me there. That might be what that is. There wasn't a lot of tagging on this.
Cape Disappointment delivers.
One of the biggest annoyances, I just have to guess at some of this stuff. Yeah. One of the biggest annoyances was the dwelling. So they talked about several feet of water in the cellar. They couldn't store vegetables. It would freeze during the winter. It would make everything damp.
Yeah.
Eventually they just concreted it. So they filled the cellars, which is part of what we see here is more and more concrete everywhere. At one time, Keeper Boyd, still on duty, and the assistants didn't receive their salary for 5 quarters.
What?
Yeah. They started to live off of credit, all of them.
Oh, no. How did that happen?
It was some of the letters I read, and they were cordial the whole time. Yeah. But John was writing like, hey, these guys are going to give up. There's an example I'm just about to cover where someone comes to make improvements to, like a carpenter comes to the house to like extend the house, make an addition. And he says, hey, can you guys dig post holes? Because the assistants are just assistants. And John he's crippled. So he points and tells people what to do. He's very intelligent, but he's not a physical laborer. And one of the guys does the work, and the other guy's like, no, it's not my job. He's like, what am I supposed to do with this military, type of format we have, and someone who just doesn't obey? Yeah. And now you're not paying them. Like, what do I have left? They were also doing other activities. Like when the tower was first built, they had a cart and several oxen that were used. Bach was in the letter. He's like, yeah, just hold on to them. They may be of use, but they've already paid for. Maybe we'll use them in another lighthouse in the future. Maybe so.
The ox?
Yeah. Find a place for the oxen and the cart.
Oh, yeah. In all the room that they have on this cape.
Yep. So they did. John was industrious, and he knew local people, and he got some people to watch him. And then eventually a letter from box said, sell them at no less than $100 per head and sell the wagon for no less than $125. Upon selling them, you'll go to the local office and wire the money directly to, my account.
Don't worry, I'll take care of it.
Yeah. So John was put through a lot. But yeah, so in the letters that got carried away, John said, hey, if the government is like insolvent, like if there's a shutdown at the time, like let us know. But I don't know how to manage the situation.
Yeah.
And so eventually they were paid. But they were living on credit, and they didn't have credit cards, right? So they were going to stores like for rations.
Yeah.
And saying like, hey, we need beans and rice to survive, and put it on my tab. And the guy's like, all right, I know where you live,
Yeah.
Like, eventually I'll get paid back. So
jeez, that's outrageous that they just
paper
didn't
records.
Pay for. That's like over a year, right?
Yeah.
How is that possible?
5 quarters.
I'm surprised they were still like those are respectable men that they would stay through all of that.
And Boyd, unfortunately, I told you he died on duty. He died before that housing addition was complete.
Dang.
So that was kind of the last of his records, was helping to manage that effort.
Mm-hmm.
So I wanted to show you.
Why does that say North Head Light?
North Head Light. This is the transferred. So this is a different. This is not. This is Cape Disappointment. I want to show you North Head Light.
They're so identical.
Yeah. But the dwelling, I think, is behind here.
I would have never guessed that those were different lighthouses.
Yeah.
So cute. Was North Head was not one of the 8 original?
It was not.
Okay. But they use the same plans, obviously, as Cape Disappointment.
Yeah. They learned, I mean, financially alone, it makes sense. But look at the windows, are slightly different.
Yeah, right.
But we'll talk about this photo. Is kind of fun.
Actually,
I don't think I included it, but there was what they called a presidential party at the lighthouse.
Okay.
But it wasn't like I think of like a planned party. It was a visitation by local fine women, and that were accompanied by gentlemen.
Oh, what?
They came out to visit the lighthouse to see what's going on out here.
Oh, with their chaperones?
They brought their own ship, and they docked, and then
Mm-hmm.
And they
these are fine ladies.
They dressed in fine clothes
around, not just from town.
Yeah, I want to say this is 1880. That picture was taken.
What?
It was before 1900, and so these hats and this fashion and these are very wealthy people.
Yes,
and they complimented the lighthouse and its appearance and upkeep and its social standing in the community, and all that was recorded.
Been blessed by all these rich people's presence.
It was recorded, and I just think this is one of the hardest pictures of like leaning on a 15-inch gun with your
casually with your nice dresses.
I may have to check all my dates, and then this one as well, like a guy looking out with a what is that? What is this called?
Telescope. Periscope.
I was thinking a sextant, but that's a little measuring device.
Right.
And I don't know, just hanging out. It's pretty cool, but
so funny.
Another story and unfortunate events.
Oh, one more question. Yeah. Is that for that they're both of them have a wire coming out the top? Is that for lightning strikes?
Mm-hmm. That's a lightning rod.
Okay, so it's grounded further away from the lighthouse.
Yeah, grounded further away, and I assume it keeps it off of the metal that is the lantern room.
Yeah, that would make sense.
Which probably helps.
We mentioned that in our history book when we talked about it, like
how to isolate it.
Can't be touching. Yeah.
Yeah, non-ferrous metals are used for some of the couplers sometimes too, like aluminum or aluminum's the only one I know of.
And whatever else.
Other ones. So I'm gonna a dip into the life-saving effort. So in 1858, which
not too deep.
Before this effort, assistant keeper Harrington was crossing over the river to Astoria, the city nearby, when it capsized, his personal boat. A man on the far shore saw the assistant climb into the bottom of the upsized boat.
Oh.
And we're talking old days.
Yeah.
He, quote, sent 3 Indians in a canoe to rescue him.
Okay.
Yeah, but before they could reach him, the boat drifted into the breakers, and Harrington was never seen again.
No way.
Assistant keeper. He was just going to get supplies or going to town for his leave, whatever it was.
There's so many stories like that. Assistant keepers just and never being seen again. Like not even being able to find them because the areas where they have lighthouses are such treacherous waters that it's just like, well, he's somewhere, but.
Well, I always think of Triangle Island because that was one of my earlier episodes I covered, and like how treacherous, because it's far away, but it's still northwest and it's still Pacific. And I think of like how crazy the storms were out there.
Ugh.
They lifted the buildings. They knocked over chimneys. Like,
yeah, and in Tillamook they talked about like waves hitting the rock so hard that boulders would come flying up. Like, that's mind blowing. Water is terrifying.
And this is probably a clear day.
Yes,
I don't imagine he's like, oh, it's a storm. I'm gonna go to town.
Yeah, this is not like capsized by waves. Just
so. Cape Disappointment Light Station was tended by Captain Joel Munson. He was the lighthouse tender, 1865 to 77. In 65, a ship called the Industry wrecked near the Cape. 24 people were on board. Only 7 of them survived.
Yikes.
It's because they didn't have any life-saving equipment. The lighthouse keepers just saw this happen.
Yeah. Yeah, what can you really do? And especially here where getting in the water is bad news.
So dangerous.
And people wait 8 days for conditions to be good enough to try to go. Like, there's no way a keeper, in some other stories where keepers, row out in their boat and save people and go back and forth. Like, that's not possible here.
It's exactly what Munson wanted to do. So he was greatly disturbed that more people could not have been saved.
Yeah.
So he found, I love history. This guy found a battered longboat on the beach.
Oh my gosh.
He decided to rebuild it for use as a life-saving boat.
Casually found and reused.
He probably stole that shit. Munson was an accomplished fiddler and organized 2 dances in the city of Astoria.
Seems unrelated information.
He charged $2.50 per person. And to raise over $200 at the time in the 1800s to fix up the boat. An old sailor helped Munson fit the boat with cork-filled fenders. Okay. Kind of neat, innovative. Yeah. And the keepers built a boathouse at the station, at the lighthouse station.
My gosh.
So this is the first life-saving craft.
At Cape Disappointment?
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
Yep. So 1866, a boat called the Scranton was loaded with 800 tons of freight from San Francisco, was driven into the middle sands of the bar. The keeper Munson, on duty, launched his craft with a few other men and was able to rescue the entire crew.
Holy cow.
Ironically, the captain of that ship, Paul Corno of the Scranton, was also one of the 7 survivors of the Industry that had wrecked only 1 year earlier.
He was probably like, is it me?
7 survived. What are the odds?
The fact that he goes out on the water is insane. Yeah.
And he crashes at the same place.
Oh, crap. I didn't. It is him.
The bigger ship. So through Munson's efforts, a life-saving station was established at Cape Disappointment in the year 1871.
Nice.
The famous craft became part of the station's initial equipment, the boat he built. He refurbished the boat.
Is it like you can, as in like it's...
It was like the boat.
And could you see it today? Like, do they have it preserved?
Yep. Yes. The tradition of life-saving continues today at the Coast Guard Lifeboat Station, and the training school was established on the Cape.
Ah, very cool. You're stealing everything.
That's all I got to say.
So I can't even do anything now.
Oh, there's lots to cover.
Fine. I'll still do a history boot.
A new, in 1871 as well, separate category, a new double dwelling was made for the keepers. It was built. It was 1,300 feet north of the lighthouse. Each side of the duplex had 11 rooms. So this is a big old lighthouse operation. Yeah. The principal keeper occupied one side, 11 rooms, ballin', and the 2 assistants shared the other. So new bell house was built that year because a gun blast from a nearby cannon shattered the old one.
Wonder where that came from.
Shattered the bell house. The station's fog bell was discontinued in 1881 and transferred to what is now West Point Lighthouse in the Puget Sound.
Okay.
Which I was thinking, West Point? Like, no, not that one, but, the military academy.
Mm-hmm. No, I don't know, but.
Well, let me look it up.
No.
Before I misquote myself. West Point. I know people who went there. Yeah, it's in New York. Yeah, Puget Sound's in Washington. Okay, just had to make sure.
Oh, clutch your pearls.
Had to check myself. So I'm going to slide. Oh, we're already here. This is the party. James Anderson served as assistant keeper for several years before being promoted to head keeper.
Nice.
At a different lighthouse.
Oh.
4 years there, he returned, and he was the head keeper at Cape Disappointment.
On purpose, or did they assign him to Cape Disappointment?
He replaced Munson when Munson retired.
Oh, I see.
And he already knew the stuff. So
Yeah.
you already knew the lighthouse.
I just wonder if this is like somewhere people don't want to be.
It sounds like a challenging but respected place.
Yeah. Well, if they're having fancy lady parties, then
Yeah.
yes.
Life-saving. Yeah. So he was 17 years at the Lighthouse, Anderson, and some of his entries are as follows. 1881, marriage at the Lightkeeper's dwelling house.
Marriage.
James Anderson to Henrietta Sorensen.
Ah.
Light breeze from the southwest, very warm. James was 54 years old. Henrietta was 24 years old.
Oh, yikes.
It was a beautiful
Dad?
day. 1883, a more beautiful sunset could never have been witnessed as last night. So brilliant clouds and horizon all around for great distance with all imaginable colors and kinds, and every the eye could behold for about 20 minutes after the setting of the sun, when all changed. Changed lighthouse lamp and burner.
Oh.
1880.
I thought you were going to say that like it had stormed or something.
2 days later, born at the Lightkeeper's dwelling at 3 a.m. to the wife of James Anderson, a daughter.
In the lighthouse, in the keeper's cottage?
Yep. 10 months later, infant daughter of James Anderson and Henrietta Anderson died at 4 a.m.
No.
Yep. The fort was called Fort Canby, by the way. She was aged 9 months, 26 days. Peace be with her soul.
Dang.
And 1885, died at Keeper's dwelling house, infant child of James Anderson, 4 o'clock p.m. Henrietta Marie Anderson, age 5 months, 15 days.
Do they say what from these deaths?
No. I don't think they knew in the 1800s.
Yeah.
You know, he just died. You know, sudden instant, was it SIDS?
Sudden, yeah.
Infant death, yeah. Or could have had birth anomalies, or could have been the weather. It's cold, you know.
Yeah.
I don't know. So it makes me sad, but
big bummer.
That the point of those entries was that there was a big variation in what was happening at that lighthouse.
Yeah.
So
what is this? Oh, North Head.
Yeah. So North Head in its final and still to today,
Ew.
this is what it looks like.
It's different.
I know it's not as nice as it was. I think they had more money, and I don't know the full story, but it's more official.
Yeah.
But this little fourth order, these are red panes of glass.
So cute.
It's in black and white, but these are red panes. This is what replaced the first order lens at Cape Disappointment.
Red and white flashing.
Yep.
That's fun.
Yep.
The original one was flashing or is fixed?
Solid white, I think.
Okay. That would make sense if you were trying to line up to it and come into the mouth of the river. What is that called?
Into the Cape. The Cape was like an inlet.
Yeah, the inlet.
Like a subtraction of
I feel like
Earth.
there's a name. Yeah. I feel like there's some kind of name for it, but whatever.
So the first order lens that we're talking about is still on display at the Lewis and Clark Interpretive Center at Cape Disappointment State Park.
Fun.
The black band, which is not shown in this image, but it's now shown on today's Cape Disappointment, that was added in 1930 to distinguish it separately from North Head.
Oh, I just forgot about it. It's white and then a large black band in the middle.
Yep. And North Head is only 2 miles away.
Oh, yeah.
So
that's nice.
There's a Toyota Tacoma, I think. So the point of this is a modern
current
view.
current photo.
Yep.
So what's on the far side of the lighthouse? There's a building there that looks newer, like military kind of. Is that like a radio station?
It is.
Okay.
So they call it a Class C radio beacon. I don't know what that means, but it was established in 1936 at Cape Disappointment, the lighthouse. The following year, the light was electrified. So 1937, light was electrified, but it wasn't automated. And so it stayed that way for 30 years. In the 60s, the Coast Guard was going to discontinue it. It said that there are other range lights now in the area. Protests, of course. Let's go protests by the Columbia River Bar pilots.
You can make it different.
Which are an important group still to today in this area, to keep the light in service because they knew it. They don't change stuff.
Yeah.
The light was automated in 1973, which is pretty late. But the original icon of the Northwest Lighthouses, still equipped with its fourth order lens, remains active to today.
Still has a Fresnel lens.
Yep.
Love that.
Spinny, red and white, fourth order.
Spinny dude.
So, I showed you that first image. That was kind of a drone image. I got another one for you. This is kind of a drone image too, I guess. But we just looked from the other side. Now this side. This is so pretty. Dead Man's Cove.
It's very scary land. Wow, that's a great picture.
So this is, oh, look, a man. This is nearby. There, I didn't want to cover it because there's too much detail. You can look it up on your own if you're interested.
Yeah.
There's a hike where you can get this view.
Hike.
And then up along the trail, you can also be in Dead Man's Cove. There's like a tree in the middle of the water. It's really pretty.
Ooh.
And it, of course, tide comes in and out. And,
Yeah.
but this is a beautiful area to hike in. You have the evergreens going all the way up to the coast. And there are some really dramatic pictures here of different waves breaking, you know.
Yeah, it's probably a pretty noisy area.
Yeah. So I just think that's super cool. We have a giveaway. Let's go. If you've made it this far, you might win. We appreciate you all. So that is my story. And I've seen so much, and it's been like a week of learning about Cape Disappointment Lighthouse that I included only a couple items. We could probably talk like a 3-part on this. So
especially when you get your hands on like keepers entries and like correspondence and stuff, it's easy to go down the rabbit hole.
Well, I got to give a shout out. One, Lighthouse Friends, of course, is a great source. But two, I saw they cited a source which was from USLHS. A paper was written in 2005.
Oh, did you go? You went deep into their website.
I read the whole thing, man. And some of these images came from there. They just did a great job. I know it's a historical society, so. And
like I mentioned last time, they changed their website, so now it's a lot easier to research on it.
Yeah.
And so they did a good job with that.
So they do a good job. We really appreciate it. But it's just a beautiful part. I wanted to say I started with all I was going to cover today was the Oriole's crash.
Right.
Because it was like, oh, it was a ship that was delivering lighthouse parts and it crashed. That's funny. And then they built a lighthouse right next to where it crashed.
It's funny.
I didn't know all the connections. And then I was like, oh, I've got to talk about Cape Disappointment. So
excellent episode. I'm so glad we finally covered that because we've talked about it a lot.
Just how often do I get to use my own pictures? Huh? That's pretty fancy.
Oh, yeah.
So thank you all for listening. And follow us. Send us a share on any platform. But
giveaway officially open when this baby drops, and then we're gonna pick a winner on Christmas Day. We'll have an episode dropping there too. It'll just be a little one, a little cute one. But we'll be announcing the winner of our giveaway, and then we'll ship for free anywhere within the U.S. Sorry to all of our international friends.
We do have a lot of international friends.
Yeah, Canada is high up there as well.
Canada, as I like to say. All right.
Yeah.
You want to close us out?
Yeah. Follow us on Instagram, and you can listen to us on Spotify, Apple, Google, anywhere you listen to your podcast, or on the lighthouselowdown.com, where you can also leave us a review. Please do it. We love to read reviews. We had a couple more people leave voicemails. You can do that on our website as well.
Nice.
And check out our YouTube, where you can see what we're looking at while we're doing our podcast. So you should do that and enter our giveaway. You go.
We'll see you next time. Thank you for joining us on the Lighthouse Lowdown.